Good morning, friends. Hope you're having a great day. Great start to your morning. I saw today a study that came out that in the last month, anti-Semitic attacks in the U.S. have soared 80%. It's just horrific when you hear the stories that are going on. Have you ever been the victim of an anti-Semitic attack? I want to tell you two stories that happened to me and connected to the Torah portion. When I was 15 years old, actually 1991, go do the math, I was 13 years old, 14 years old. And it was the summertime, and I was in Crown Heights, and I witnessed the Crown Heights riots, which was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen in my life. I was young, and as you know, it started when a driver accidentally killed a black child, which ended up in horrific riots. And I'll never forget one time running down the main street on Kingston Avenue and hundreds of people marching and running into a fruit store on the corner of President and Kingston, Raskin's fruit stores, and they roll down their gate that closed at night to secure the store. And I peeked through the mailbox slot that was cut out in that gate because you couldn't see through the rest of it. It was there to protect the glass. And I saw hundreds of people throwing stones and screaming, "Hail Hitler," while the police stood and watched. It's something that's ingrained in my psyche that I will never, ever forget, especially watching leaders in that community that today are still leaders, marching with them and the police watching it. Then, in about 1995, I was in Miami, and I was helping my brother-in-law and sister who started a Chabad in Kendall. And one Friday night, we were walking home, and the dark cul-de-sac streets in Florida, and as we're walking home, a car pulls over next to us, an old red Oldsmobile, you know, the two-door cars. And I thought that the guy wanted to ask his direction. He rolled down the window, and the guy pulled out a gun and started shooting. Me and my brother-in-law ran. We said Shema Yisrael. We thought it was the end of our life. And he was screaming, "Hail Hitler, the Jews." After like 5 minutes, we stopped running because we heard everything stop. We turned around. He was gone. We realized my brother-in-law was bleeding, but we realized the guy obviously had a BB gun. Thank God it wasn't a real gun. At the moment, we didn't know that. But I remember the police coming the next morning on Saturday morning and interviewing us. They never found the guy. But these are things that leave a traumatic impact on our psyche. And when you think that anti-Semitism is up 80% in 1 week, I saw Dan Rather tweeted something very powerful. He says, when you condemn anti-Semitism and then you say but, then you didn't condemn anti-Semitism. And that's what we're watching in shocking ways from so many people who stood up against racism and prejudice. They're saying, we're going to stand up against anti-Semitism, but. And the problem is there is no buts. It has to be unequivocal. When you stand up to hate, it has to be without any attachments, without any conditions. And I recommend very strongly that you read Bret Stephens' remarkable op-ed in the New York Times today. I don't read much there, and I can't stand the blatant anti-Semitism and prejudice against Israel they have. But this is something that's so important. Google it, and I'll post a link in here. But I want to tell you something. In this week's Torah portion, it tells us about the biblical commandment that when the Jews went out to war, they had the trumpets that they had to blow. The Torah commanded them when they went out to war to blow the trumpets for the people. But then in the next verse, the Torah tells us that when there's a holiday, when there's a celebration, you should also blow the trumpets. And the question is, why the same trumpets for war and the same trumpets for celebration and holiday? And the metaphor is an important one. You see, when it comes to war, when it comes to crisis, when it comes to persecution, throughout our history, the Jewish people have held their pride, their Judaism, wore it on their sleeves, stood up proud, been the strong people they could. But when it came to times of goodness, of happiness, of joy, of celebration, then they they weren't so proud. They didn't wear their Judaism the way they should. And what the Torah is telling us is that it's important when there's anti-Semitism and when there's persecution and when there's hate to wear your Judaism on your sleeve, to be proud, to be strong, to make rallies. There's been 2 rallies in Newton over the last 2 weeks to support Israel. There's another one tomorrow, I think, or today, to condemn anti-Semitism. That's amazing. When you see 1,000 people in the street, we appreciate it. But we also have to be proud even when we live in abundance and celebrate and have all the beautiful things we could. A dear friend of mine last week messaged me, and he showed me an article that he read, and he said he was considering to start wearing a kippah to show his Jewish pride, even though he's not religious, he's not observant, but he sees what's going on. And he wants to walk around with a kippah always to show, yes, I'm Jewish and I'm proud of it. Not just in bad times, but also in good times. There's a fascinating metaphor given, the story between the sun and the wind. The wind and the sun were arguing, who's stronger? The wind said, I'm stronger, watch. And suddenly, there was a guy walking in the street wearing a jacket, and the wind is blowing back and forth ferociously, and the guy keeps on clinging to his jacket, and he's holding it stronger, and he's not letting go of it. And suddenly, he still can't get the jacket off. So the wind gives up. So the sun says, let me try. And the sun starts shining. It's 70 degrees and sunny, 80 degrees and sunny, 90 degrees and sunny, 100 degrees and sunny. And the guy can't. He's schwitzing. He's wet. He takes his jacket off. And the metaphor is simple. When the winds are blowing, when anti-Semitism is hollering, when people hate us, we stand up strong. And we hold on to our jacket, we cling on to our Judaism, we cling on to everything we believe in. But then suddenly, when the sun comes out and everything's shining and everyone loves us and we're successful and we're affluent and we live in a country like America where we could choose to be who we are and what we are, we take off our jacket, we forget our principles, we forget who we are. Yes, it's important to stand tall as a Jew during times of anti-Semitism. And yes, we need to fight back. And yes, we need to wear a kippah when there's anti-Semites. But we also have to remember that when the sun is shining, the Torah tells us, "Usikatem b'chatzosos, uv'yom simchatchem." In the day of your joy, in the day of your celebration, take those same trumpets, that same pride, that same love, that same celebration, that same happiness, that same embracing of Judaism, and do it the same way. God bless you. May we eradicate anti-Semitism. May we get rid of those who hate us. May we be strong and proud and fight back. And may the day come when there's no anti-Semitism and we'll still be celebrating our Judaism proudly. God bless you and have a good day.